Hey everyone, my name is Preston, and I'm here to give you a first look at a new tabletop RPG tool called WorldWizard.io. WorldWizard, in its current state, is an application for enhancing your homebrew capabilities as a dungeon master by giving you the tools that you need to turn your cool ideas into playable content to use for your TTRPG games. Currently, WorldWizard is built for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, with plans to expand to other game systems in the future. So once you sign up for WorldWizard, the first thing you're going to want to do is create a campaign. So to create a campaign, we're just going to create one called Curse of Strahd. The only game system supported at the moment is D&D 5e, and the genre that I'm going to select is just fantasy. You want to make sure we supply a description, and once you have that, you can upload a cover image if you would like, but I'm just going to submit. Once you submit, you will see your campaign listed here under the Campaigns tab in the nav menu. You'll just want to open your campaign and click Activate. You'll notice that you have several new options that come up. So each of these options, worlds, gods, NPCs, monsters, outfits, items, these are all things that we consider game assets. Game assets behave and function all of the same when it comes to how we are creating and managing these. So just as an example, since we're running Curse of Strahd, I'm going to go over here to the Monsters tab, and I have a really cool idea to create an undead hound dog for Strahd to use as a bodyguard and friend. So we create an undead hound dog for Strahd. I'm going to also generate a portrait, and there are tons of portrait settings that we can use. We even have the ability to override the portrait for you to directly inject whatever prompt you want to use for creating a portrait. We can also create a backstory, and I don't want it super wordy, so I'm just going to say it's 100 words long. It's a tragic backstory, definitely a negative tone because this is Curse of Strahd. We also have the ability to add additional actions, bonus actions, reactions. What I'll do is I have an idea for an attack action that allows the dog to use its leash to trip its enemies. So you can kind of see how using these generators, you can take what's in your head. You can use this tool to turn that into actual content to use at the game table. With this simple description of what I want and also a description of an additional action that I would like, go ahead and click submit and wait for the magic to happen. Alright, so now that that is done, we have successfully created the Hound of Strahd. With WorldWizard, everything is organized in these neat cards. Right, when we create game assets, they are created in this card format, which kind of allows you to organize and structure them how you want. We created the Hound of Strahd. Let's go in here and see what we actually have and check to see if this is something that we want to implement in our game. This hound has advantage on perception checks that rely on hearing or smelling. It also has Undead Fortitude. Is basically an ability that says that if this hound were to drop to 0 hit points, it can make a Constitution saving throw, +5 the damage taken. On a success, the hound drops to 1 HP instead. You've seen that sort of ability on many undead creatures in D&D 5th edition. It also has a bite attack and the requested leash attack that we mentioned that lets it use an enchanted leash in a strategic maneuver to trip its enemy's melee weapon attack +6 to hit, 10-foot reach on one target. On hit, the target must make a DC 14 dexterity saving throw or be knocked prone. We also requested a backstory, so we'll head over here to the lore tab. You see it gives us an origin, a pact, the transformation, backstory generated. That's kind of cool. The great thing about these is once we generate, we can actually just use the generated monster more like a template for what we really want to make. Some of this stuff we don't have control over initially, but once the monster is created, we can go in and edit the monster and change any of the attributes to whatever we have in mind. Say for example, I don't necessarily care for its name to be Hound. Let's just call him Rufus. Maybe his name isn't Hound of Strahd, it's just Rufus. Let's head over here to the lore tab. Lore, we have a basic description. Here's that backstory that we created. Say we didn't really like the backstory too much, or we wanted to add a backstory that directly tied in with exactly what it is that we had in mind, or maybe something related to like a player. We could definitely just modify the backstory here. Quick summary, which is what shows up on the front of the card. We can also add a habitat. Get to the real meat and potatoes. Under the Rules tab, here's where we can modify any of the mechanical elements of the monster. So this is things like armor class, hit points, challenge rating. We can give it specific ability scores, different modifiers for various saving throws, skills, senses, languages, actions, bonus actions, reaction, immunities, resistances, the whole 9 yards. We can really take this and create whatever monster we'd like. Moving on to the images tab. If we didn't like this portrait, we can create another one. We just generate another portrait. If you already have one, maybe you found something on Google, we can replace it here with the upload PNG or JPEG files and use that as a portrait, but also we can just generate an additional portrait if you don't like this one. So there we go. We have a dog named Rufus, which is the hound dog of Strahd, and he uses him as a companion and bodyguard. So that's the generators in a nutshell. Moving on to NPCs. You can see that you have a lot of the same actions. Text-based generators, which is a lot of the same that we use for monsters. And of course, we can create from a blank template as well. So let's say, for example, now we want to add a homebrew NPC to my Curse of Strahd game. In this case, I really liked the idea of having a hag walking around with a cart full of dream pastries. So wouldn't it be cool to give the dream pastry hag coven business competitor? So why don't we make, instead of a dream pastry that gives you sweet dreams, let's have a hag that sells energy bars made from graveyard dirt. All right, and we're gonna leave everything pretty much default here, but I do want to generate a portrait, and we're just gonna submit this and see what we get. Okay, here we go. So we have Griselda, who is a fey hag that sells potent energy bars that could be harvested from graveyard soil. This hag has various abilities. We can go in and do a lot of the same. Say, hey, we don't like the specific actions. We maybe remove that, generate another one. We don't like the layer actions. We'll just get rid of that. Yeah, again, a lot of the same here. We generated a hag that will be a competitor for the hags who sell dream pastries. So just using this tool, I was able to create 4 additional homebrew monsters to throw at my players, as well as a few other NPCs. All we've been doing so far is creating monsters, NPCs. We also have the ability to create gods, and a lot of that is the same, except there are additional fields for holy days and various religions that are associated to gods. But one thing we're missing, one critical aspect that we're missing, is worlds. Obviously, in the campaign, Curse of Strahd, there is a world called Barovia, and it is, I'd say, probably a medium magic setting, definitely medieval technology, and the world state is currently prison. I think that's the best way to describe a world state. Typically, with world state, you want to say like, hey, the world is at war, or the world is at peace. Whatever you think is happening in your homebrew world, this is what you'd put in the world state. This right here is the overall world description. Again, Barovia is a prison to Strahd and the Shadowfell. We can add a cover image, and we can also upload a map. So once we've created the world of Barovia, we now have additional options available for the world. Geography, these are things like mountains and lakes. Locations are areas of interest that your parties can visit. Tavern or a farm. We can also create resources, right? And these are things like coal, oil, like what is potentially a resource that the region relies on to be like to economically make sense. Cultures, wanted to add an additional culture to my campaign. Say I wasn't necessarily happy with just having Vistani culture. Say I wanted to also add like a group of barbarians. I wanted to give that group of barbarians a certain kind of culture and context around their existence. I could do that here, and then you could associate NPCs to these specific cultures. All right, so that's pretty much all there is to talk about for worlds for now. That's something we're still expanding on, But the next thing I want to show you is the workshop. In the future, the plan is to give creators the ability to publish their own work here on the workshop that can be shared and experienced by multiple people. But for now, the two main data packs that we have available on the workshop are the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition magic items from the SRD, as well as monsters from the SRD. So this is official D&D content that you can actually use in your World Wizard campaigns. And so from the workshop, you can actually just add this data pack of monsters, and this will go directly to your library. Okay, so what is the library? So you'll notice that when you go to the library, you have a lot of the same options that you do in the campaign. Like we have the ability to create and generate NPCs, monsters, gods, items, even worlds related stuff. But the main difference between the library and your campaign, you can kind of think of all of the game assets within your campaign as existing only within the context of the campaign. The library is more like a place to store all of your game assets, and you can pull from your library into your various campaigns. So as an example here, from my library, I can actually import any of these game assets, NPCs, monsters, gods, directly into my campaign. But this kind of keeps the campaign-related content organized and within the context of the campaign, so that way I'm not constantly sorting through all of my D&D content. So to give you an example, everyone who has played D&D in the past is probably familiar with at least some of these monsters. Say I wanted to put the just put the standard bandit in my Curse of Strahd game. I could head over here to the Monsters tab, click on the Import button, find the bandit, select the bandit, and just for fun, let's also select the Bearded Devil and a Black Bear. We'll go ahead and update this, and you'll see that these SRD monsters from my library are now added to my Curse of Strahd game. Obviously, within the library, we're not just limited to the SRD content, but we also have the same abilities that we do in campaign to create and generate game assets as we see fit. So if we just want to have some fun and fill our library with D&D content without interfering with our campaign content, we have these same options that you have already seen. Just as an example, I'm going to go ahead and generate a god. Since this is in my library, I'm actually just going to create a god that's totally unrelated to Curse of Strahd, because we're not really limited to the context of that campaign. So I can just create a god, the god of flowing water and local fishermen. The same generator settings that we've seen before for NPCs and monsters. We'll submit this and we'll see what we get. Here we go, we have the Flow Keeper, some water deity. Yeah, born from the first drop of rain that touched the ocean. The Lass was revered by ancient fishermen who prayed for his blessing. He has guided countless generations, aiding those who respect the sea's gifts. Pretty cool, like a god that might one day bring a lost fisherman back home that perhaps your party will someday meet, you know, just hypothetically. So that's pretty much it for a first look of World Wizard. Hopefully you found this informative, and if you have any questions or you just want to see what this is all about, you can sign up now for a free trial with unlimited access to the application for a limited period of time. And you can also join the Discord and have discussions with me or other members who are currently using the application. So again, this has been Preston. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.